everybody. This is Carol Maletta. Welcome to the Parenting 411 podcast, where we share information parents need from sources they can trust. If you've ever wished your metabolism came with a little boost button, this might be it. Ollie Metabolism Gummy Rings are a tasty way to help your body's natural energy process stay in motion. Each crisp apple-flavored ring is packed with apple cider vinegar, chromium to support lean body mass, and vitamin B12 for that extra get up and go. They're delicious, NSF certified, and super easy to add to your daily routine. So if you're ready to support your metabolism in the sweetest way possible, tap the link and try Ollie Metabolism Gummy Rings today. So it's no secret that some of the most important conversations that we have with our children are also the hardest ones to start. Whether it's about loss, injustice, a world event, even sex. Many parents feel unsure about how much to share or how to say it in a way that their child will actually understand. And sometimes we're tempted to avoid those topics altogether, hoping to shield our children from life's difficulties or just to avoid our own discomfort. And let me tell you, I am guilty of that. I can remember that I had to fast track a discussion about sex when my two sons, who are twins, were about 6 years old. And so one of my sons was an early reader, and he would sometimes read our magazines and his newspapers on his own. And so he found a story about a teen actress, famous teen actress, to announce that she was pregnant at 16. And so he came to me and said, "I know what she did, Mommy." And I was like, "Ooh, you do?" And he said, "Yes, she got married." And I didn't want to get into this topic. I mean, he knew a little bit about the birds and the bees in a very elementary, juvenile sort of way. But I almost wanted to let that understanding stand. Like, yep, you are right. That's exactly what she did. She got married, and that's how she got pregnant, and she's going to have a baby. But I realized I had to extend the conversation, because that's another thing. The conversation about sex isn't one conversation. It evolves and with your child's understanding. And so I did go ahead and have a discussion in an age appropriate way and advance the discussion so that I couldn't let that hang there, that married equals having a baby. And so I can absolutely relate to those parents that shy away from tough discussions. But seriously, we have to open the door to honest, age-appropriate conversations. And when we do that, we show our children that anything mentionable is manageable and nothing is too big to talk about together. And so it isn't always easy, but these discussions help our children build resilience, trust, and confidence that they can turn to us no matter what they're facing. And so here to help me talk about this for you is Richard Michelson. He's an acclaimed poet and award-winning author whose children's books tackle life's big themes with both heart and honesty. And his work has garnered top honors from the New York Times, the New Yorker, the National Jewish Book Awards, and his stories are celebrated for opening doors to important conversations between parents and kids. So I want you to join us as we talk with Richard about how picture books can help families discuss tough topics, nurture empathy, and build understanding that lasts a lifetime. So welcome. Thank you for joining me, Richard.
Oh, thank you, Carol. It's always good to have the lead be sex. Now people are listening, and I'll tell them, sorry, I'm not talking about that. But still, the idea is the same. It's a pleasure to be with you on your show. To think that this all started because we were doing yoga on the beach together, as I recall, next to each other, and it's nice to have that develop into a friendship.
Absolutely. And it was wonderful meeting you. And I have to tell our listeners and our viewers that, yes, we did meet on the beach doing beach yoga at Barther's Vineyard. And I was also struck by your hoodie. You had a hoodie, and on the back of it was Tell Your Story, Inspire a Child. And that very much seems to uh, be the overarching message of your work, as we're going to talk about today. So, did you set out to write children's stories, say when you were in college or even younger, thinking about your future?
No. How's that for the quick answer? I did not grow up in a household with books. I was not read stories to as a child.
Mm.
All this was much, much later for me. I grew up in East New York, Brooklyn, and they were just, it just was not in consciousness. I have to say that even as a young father, I'm hesitant to say, but I will. I did not read to my kids. It wasn't something that was modeled for me. So I really didn't do that. I was a poet. I was working for writing for adults, and that was primarily how I thought of myself. And then I discovered picture books much later in life. My kids like to joke that when they were very young, I would sit and read to them from Kafka. And then when they got older and would come home from college, I'd be sitting reading picture books. So I went kind of in the other direction. I was writing poetry. I then when my kids were young, I would talk to them about things. I never shied away from difficult topics, but I wasn't writing them down until much later. I happened to be having a lunch with a friend of mine who's in the industry, the picture book industry, and I was talking about, some things I've been talking about with my kids, and he said, write that down. And I did. My first couple of books were poetry for children. But I write about the things that interest me. I was born into a neighborhood that was pretty well 95% Jewish when I was born. By the time I left, we were the last, say, white family in the neighborhood. It had turned from Jewish to Black and then to Latino. So, things change. My own dad, I don't want to get heavy here, we're talking about other things, was a victim of gun violence and did not make it out of the neighborhood. But I was writing for adults as well. And I don't know if your audience knows Julius Lester. If you don't, he was a wonderful writer. He's long passed, well, not long. Time is relative. But Julius was kind of second in command in the SNCC movement. Way back when, Stokely Carmichael, he was kind of Julius was the intellectual of the group. He was actually kicked off. I'll circle back quickly to the kids' books, but he was actually kicked off of New York City radio for anti-Semitism. He then started studying, because that's what he did, and he ended up converting to Judaism. And as he was in a class of two with my wife, and I did not grow up with any Jewish education whatsoever. I did not go to Hebrew school. I was not bar mitzvahed. But my wife decided to convert, really against my wishes, I have to say. And the first time I walked into the temple, it was her, and I saw the davening in the first row was Julius Lester, who I knew as a Black militant. And I couldn't figure out what he was doing there. But we became dear, dear friends. And Julius, whose first book was titled "Look Out, Whitey, Black Power Gonna Get Your Mama," if we can go back into those times. And but he ended up writing for children.
Mm.
And as we were, talking over time, he said, considering your background and what you're writing about, I often wrote about race and social justice issues. He said, you should, write about those subjects for kids. So I did because I was a poet,
Mm-hmm.
but used to trying to get my language down to the essentials.
Mm-hmm.
And to riff off of your statement at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
people often say to me, you tackle difficult subjects. One of my books, which was a New York Times 10 Best Books of the Year, is called Busing Brewster. It was about a black child bused to an all-white school.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I was a white child with the only white in my class.
It seems like your experiences growing up and just the relationships that you formed, like meeting Julius Lester, have really prepared you for this bridge building almost that you're doing through your writing and really making it, you're building a bridge with another generation, with children, and also you're teaching them to think outside of themselves, outside of their group, and recognizing that other people have valuable perspectives and talents and value to add to this big world that we're trying to live in together.
Well, I think, people who say to me, why introduce children
Mm-hmm.
to subjects of racism,
Mm-hmm.
subjects of anti-Semitism, to busing, my recent books are on Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis, and boy, could we use him today.
Mm-hmm.
I have a book about Obama, a book about the friendship of Martin Luther King and Abraham Joshua Heschel. But when I don't sugarcoat, I
Mm-hmm.
try to give hope. Sometimes even if I don't have it in the world we're living in today, but children deserve hope. And when people say to me, how do why talk to children about things so early? I think to myself, I wonder if they've ever been children. Being a child is walking through a minefield. Kids are tremendously sophisticated. I
Mm-hmm.
think more so than we give them credit for. They have to negotiate their classrooms every day. They're very aware of who's the bully in the class,
Mm-hmm.
what's right and what's wrong. Do they stand up for their peers if somebody's being teased?
Mm-hmm.
They're aware of their looks. They know if they're black, if they're Latino, if they're Jewish, and they hear things. So it's less that I'm not introducing these things to kids. I'm just giving them a way to speak about it
Mm-hmm.
and giving adults a chance, if they're reading with the kids,
Mm-hmm.
uh, to broach the subject. And the main thing is in the books that you have to not be teaching a lesson. Nobody wants to be lectured to.
Right.
It
Yeah.
has to be a good story. And if it's a good story, the kids are interested and then they learn
Learn the
the
lessons.
storytelling.
Now, you talk about going back a little bit to your childhood, you talk about not being read to, not having that model. Instead, were there conversations that informed you, like conversations over dinner with your parents that informed your interpretation of like the changes in the neighborhood or the different racial ethnic groups that you came in contact with? Was there conversation that way that kind of planted the seed
There,
of
there
you
really wasn't.
understanding?
It was a different time. There was not. My father was working 7 days a week, 15 hours a day. I barely, I saw him because he, was working to try to put food on the table. We would see him occasionally on a Sunday, and he'd be wanting to sleep, and catch up for the rest of the day. My mother was loving and wonderful. Both my parents were wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I wish I'd gotten to know my dad as a man, so
Mm-hmm.
that but my mother and I were very close. But that was just it wasn't stuff that was discussed. It was just around me. I saw people fleeing the neighborhood, other people coming in.
Mm-hmm.
I walked the minefield of trying to make friends. I have a book called Across the Alley,
Yeah.
which is about a little Jewish child and a Black Christian child who aren't allowed to play with each other during the day, but their bedroom windows face each other. And at night, they
Mm-hmm.
become best friends. And the book's about whether they're willing to take their friendship out in the open.
Wow.
Um, and the nice thing about being a writer is that you can give yourself different endings than maybe happened in real life.
Sure.
I have to say that I was not brave as a child.
Mm-hmm.
And if my friend, a black child, was being picked on, I did not stand up. And if I was being picked on, he didn't stand up for me. That's just the way it was. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but when I wrote my book, As Good as Anybody, about Martin Luther King and Abraham Joshua Heschel,
Mm-hmm.
uh, what I was looking for was that friendship. And then I want to find out, as children, what was it in their backgrounds that allowed them to reach across the aisle
Mm-hmm.
and become friends. What was it? Because they were not perfect child. My book starts with the line, I think Martin was angry.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want people to look at these figures as saints because they
Yeah.
weren't. They were kids.
Mm-hmm.
They get angry and they would get in trouble and etc. But deep inside, they had the courage eventually to
Mm-hmm.
be able to reach out to, I like to tell kids when I'm in class, sometimes if one person speaks out, it gives the next person a little boost to speak out, and then maybe the next one. And before long, you have a movement, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to look for subjects that made a difference in
Mm-hmm.
life, in history, and then just start the conversation.
Well, in your conversations, as you meet children around the country, as you go on book tours and such, what is your sense about children in terms of how aware they are of what's going on and how they're integrating what they're learning in your books to how they're sparking conversation with their parents and how they're activating the lessons in their lives.
So, number one, again, I think kids are always amazed. I'm always amazed at how sophisticated children are,
Hmm.
and how much they want to talk about these things. So, one of my most recent books is called More Than Enough, and it's about homeless people.
Hmm.
And it came about because walking from, I have an art gallery, you see it behind me. From there to lunch every day at my favorite restaurant, I would walk less than a block and pass 5 or 6 people every day on the street,
Hmm.
begging for money. Maybe a couple of them playing, busking, playing guitar. Others just hoping for money. And it's a gauntlet, and there's no place in the United States where you're not passing people who are hungry. The society is not set up to be fair.
Hmm.
Uh, and one of the things that I noticed when I walked down the street, I'm uncomfortable too in situations like that, and I don't know how to react
Mm-hmm.
to some of these people. And I got to watching parents walk by with their children,
Mm-hmm.
and it's fascinating to me. Most parents will pull the child closer to them and walk faster,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just get past it. And I understand that. I understand that. Every now and again, I see somebody give their child $1 to put in somebody's cup.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I've seen people buy a slice of pizza and then bring it out and give it to someone. And
Mm-hmm.
so I started thinking about, as parents, we are modeling behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Kids are watching.
Yes.
They're not listening to what you're telling them. They're watching how you behave, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so and sometimes as an adult, we don't know how to behave. I mean, I don't know how to solve hunger, how to get people off the street. Do we give them money? Do we put it? Do we just donate to food banks? Do we worry about drug use and things like
Mm-hmm.
that? And then I happened to be reading, I know how this sounds, Maimonides, who uh, who was a rabbi,
Mm-hmm.
700, 800 years ago, and he was writing about the same exact thing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I realized this is a problem that's with us forever, for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I turned it into a story of a little kid who's wants to go out, and it's his birthday. He has some money. He wants to go buy his first pair of sneakers because they don't have new sneakers, and he's walking with his mom, and they see somebody begging on the street corner,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't have shoes.
Mm-hmm.
The kid doesn't want to give away his money. I wouldn't have wanted to. He's poor enough.
Mm-hmm.
There's somebody without shoes, and he's just looking to get new sneakers. Do you pass by? Do you not? There's no moral push in that,
Mm-hmm.
but you see how the kid thinks about it. And as he goes through the town, he sees other people and he helps. He does finally put some money in this cup, and later on, that person has shoes and was able to get a job and then helped another neighbor. And one of the nicest things to me is when I go and read that story around, I'll get emails from parents
Mm-hmm.
saying, we walk down this street all the time, and now for the first time, my child is looking at these people and trying to see them as people and asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they there? How do we help them? Again, I hope if you read the story more than
Mm-hmm.
enough, it's fun to read.
Right.
It's not. I don't want to make it that it's a lesson. You want to turn the page to see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
There's laughter. There's sadness. But at the end, the child is going to see their world differently. They're
Mm-hmm.
walking down the street and wonder, how did this person get there? What can
Mm-hmm.
I do maybe to help?
Mm-hmm.
And as a child, there's very little they can do
Right.
often, but most of us remember the stories we were told as children,
Mm-hmm.
right? Those
Mm-hmm.
those are things that are dearest to us. And in my mind, it's almost more important to give good stories and artwork. These are picture books
Right.
to young children because that's what they're going to remember. And as they get older, things aren't going to change immediately,
Mm-hmm.
but all we can do is we can throw that pebble in the water and hope that the waves pull out a little bit. We can do one spark and hope that if the child gets introduced to enough, they'll start internalizing this stuff and start wondering how they can help and realize that they can, that people make a difference one at a time. You're not powerless.
If brushing battles have become part of your nightly routine with your kids, it's time to make smiles happen the easy way. The Oral-B Kids Electric Toothbrush turns brushing into fun with gentle, dentist-inspired cleaning power designed just for little mouths. With soft bristles, a built-in timer, and kid-favorite themes like Disney princesses, Frozen, and Pixar Mandalorian, it's the brush they'll actually want to use. Plus, it connects to the Disney Magic Timer app, which rewards your kids for brushing the full 2 minutes. Ready to make happy brushing a reality in your house? Just click the link and grab this deal by Oral-B today. Well, that's something that I wonder about your books and the impact it has on the adults who are reading the stories with them. Because it's possible for adults to feel helpless too and overwhelmed by everything. You hear of a disaster, say a hurricane in Jamaica or different places, and like maybe there's so many tragedies happening all at once, and you feel like I can't do anything. And this is even as adults who have money, they have life experience, and they could kind of really wrap their heads around some of these problems and figure out some things to do, but they feel like they can't. And so I'm wondering how much your books for children are inspiring the adults around them. Do you have a sense of that?
I have a good sense of that. I think one of the saddest things in our society is that we think of picture books as children's books, and that parents are always in a hurry to get their children to read bigger books. You know, we put aside the picture books. That's a big mistake. For one thing, this society, the way it's set up now, visual literacy is tremendously important. I mean, we get assaulted by images every day, everything. Kids need to be able to see wonderful art. And some of the picture books, some of our greatest artists of our time are doing picture books. The other thing that for me, even now, if I want to learn about something, I will often turn to a picture book, because if the writer has done their homework, they can boil it down to its essentials. That's the job. I have a book, I think, that came out last month on Louis Brandeis, like I said, the Supreme Court Justice. And I spent a year reading all his papers, his decisions, etc. None of that is in the book. The hardest part for me as a writer is you learn all this stuff. You want to prove how smart you are, but the knowledge often gets in the way of the story. The main thing is it has to be a good story to get the kids involved. But I have to read all that in order to get inside Brandeis's head, why he did what he did, why he tried to help people, why he later as an adult took cases for free if somebody couldn't afford it, if it was a social justice issue. So I did that work, so you don't have to, right?
Yeah, I like that. And I was thinking about asking you that question too, about like what goes into it, because I think people, maybe it's improving because picture books have come a long way, not only in the graphics and the quality and the imagery and the subjects addressed, but it's moving beyond like being a dismissive category of, that's for that's for little kids, and it's really just to teach them to read, that kind of thing. It's not really teaching them a bigger lesson. We've moved beyond that. So you gave us a glimpse of what's involved with that. It's not just, let me get a good artist, some cute kids, and they're out playing in the field and put a few words together and you've got a children's book. You really, the research that you did almost sounds like what you would have done if you were writing some sort of biography of Louis Brandeis, right? I mean, you going through his decisions and all of that. You did that so that it could crystallize into a story that children could understand.
Right. And And there are some wonderful, thick, 500-page biographies of Louis Brandeis. And I encourage people, in fact, when I finished my story, I sent it to the two or three of the greatest Brandeis scholars in
Mm.
the country. I'm not a scholar. What I'm good at is taking information and making it understandable and readable, so that children and adults, it's like an introduction to the subject. But I also have to make sure that, even though the story for me is paramount, that I'm not mischaracterizing. So I sent my story to the experts,
Mm-hmm.
and I got some. They would get back to me and say, well, this you might be misleading. This is happened a little bit differently. And I
Mm.
take that into account. I want, it to be true and factual.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if I change from factual, or change anything, I make sure, at least in the end of the book, that in the notes, it's, I'll give you an
If this
example.
happened a little differently, maybe.
Yeah, so
Mm.
next year in the White House,
That's what I
uh,
wanted to get to.
yeah, so Barack Obama's first presidential Seder.
Mm-hmm.
So since the beginning of this country, Christmas was celebrated in the White House in the 1800s, Easter, etc. No one celebrated Passover until 2009, Barack Obama's first term. And the book talks about that, how that came to be.
Mm-hmm.
And through, I got to put words in Obama's mouth. I got to put words in his mouth. And I'm told he's very happy with it and thinks that I could have been as a speechwriter. But at that very first White House Seder,
Mm-hmm.
his daughters, Malia and Sasha, got a little chew toy as a gift, for Bo the dog. And we all
Okay.
remember Bo, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, so in my book, so that is factual.
Mm-hmm.
I did in that book make one change. I brought Bo to the White House a week earlier than he arrived. Because I wanted him in early scenes, and because there's no book for adults or children in the world that doesn't get improved if you put a dog in the first scene,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I wanted him there, so that you could see in the different pictures, you see Bo in different places as part of it, and then at the end, the girls get the chew toy. And everything in the story is correct except for that one little thing. And so in the end notes, I make a note. I say my special dog lover's license gave me license to make that change. But
Mm-hmm.
other than that, it's the story as it happened. It's American history.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, when I met you, were talking about going on tour, and I think you'd had a recent event where you were accompanied by Valerie Jarrett. Was that for this book?
That was epic, yeah. We did a talk. Valerie, who's absolutely wonderful, and she's now, the head of the Obama Foundation, and they're building his presidential library in Chicago.
Mhm.
When I wrote the book, my
Mhm.
publishers told me that Obama very much liked it.
Mhm.
But they're my publicists. I don't know if I believe them, right?
Right.
So Valerie and I got, because she was at that first Seder, that's why
Mhm.
she's in the book. So we did a talk in New York City when the book first came out, and it was a lot of fun, and we got along very well. So we decided to do another talk on Martha's Vineyard, and we did, and it was while I was telling the story, I turned to her and I said just this question. I said, Valerie, you know, um, everybody, I'm told that Obama liked the book. I'm told that he's happy with it. I can take it if that's, tell me the
That's not
truth.
true.
In front of in front of hundreds of people, I'm asking you this question, and I'm ready for the answer. And let me know, did he like it? And she looked at me incredulously. She said, "Of course he did. I gave him the book. We talked about it, and he loved this about it. He loved that about it." I said, "Thank you very much. Then how come he hasn't invited me to his parties, right? I want to meet him." And she said, "I can't believe you haven't met him. We will make it happen."
Okay.
It's kind of fun, right?
Right.
Uh, After the talk, it
Hmm.
just so happens that Governor Josh Shapiro's, one of his chiefs of staff there, was in the audience
Mm.
and had filmed that little, and it was filming some of it to show him. So
Good.
she sent me that clip uh,
Hmm.
of the talk with Valerie saying that, and so I have it on record now, and I will make sure I follow up with Valerie and say I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for the
That would be
invitation.
wonderful. I'm sure he would absolutely love to meet you, and and talk about
Yeah.
the larger issues around what you're trying to do, what you were trying to do with that book, what you are hoping to impart in children, and just the difference you want to make as we move forward.
I mean, especially today, I so obviously we have fallen so far from Obama's time. I would love to meet him, but more important, I want to meet Michelle. Right? I mean, uh,
Yes, yes.
that would be cool.
Yes, that they're on my list too. I met him on the first campaign trail. I did go, I did meet him and shake his hand and all of that, but he wasn't president yet.
Right.
I'm still happy to have met him, but and have been in the same room with Michelle, but did not meet her in
Right.
the sense that you're talking about. But yeah, they'd be great to meet. So when you think about what you see out there in the picture book, I was tempted to say children's books, and I know that that's your first target. But as you said, certainly older children, young adults, and adults can learn from these books as well. When you look at that genre, that sector, what gives you hope about the type of material and insights that will be placed in children's hands going
Right.
forward?
So first, let me just say one thing that we forget as adults,
Hmm.
that because we mentioned Obama, that Obama is ancient history to kids. I mean, it's you don't realize that for many in the age group that starts reading this book,
Hmm.
uh, they were not alive
Hmm.
during Obama's time. So, and the way history is being twisted now,
Mm. Hmm.
it's really important to get the facts out, so that these children grow up and realize that there was a time
Hmm.
when the president was not perfect,
Hmm.
but the aim was to try to be as fair to as many in society as we can, as opposed to just, well, we won't go there, but but I want them to know that. I want them to know there was a time in my Louis Brandeis book, called What Louis Brandeis Knows, when the Supreme Court, as they get older, obviously the book starts with him as a child,
Hmm.
but there was a time when that was an independent part of government that stood
Hmm.
up to the executive branch and didn't Brandeis was the first lawyer to start working pro bono, which means for free,
Mm-hmm.
uh, for people who can't afford the the fees,
Mm-hmm.
and then that became a part of most law firms,
Mm-hmm.
pro bono work
Mm-hmm.
for people. The fact that now you see lawyers doing pro bono work for the executive branch, for the president, and that's just such a miscarriage of justice. The whole
Mm-hmm.
point of that was to work for people who don't
Couldn't
have
afford it.
the
Yes.
funds. So I want them to know that history. That was time. I want them to know there were people. I have a book. Actually, today is I have a new book out today. Today's my pub day, called Fanny's Big Idea.
Mm-hmm.
And Fanny started 100 years ago well, the book's out today, but Jewish Book Month starts on the 13th. Fanny was the first Jewish librarian at the Boston Public Library,
Okay.
and she was one of the first progenitors of what we have come to know as windows and mirrors,
Mm.
which means that every child has a right to see themselves in books.
Oh.
That's the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
So we need, nowadays when books are under assault, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and books are being banned if the character is gay or if they're black right now. So but Fanny, who started Jewish Book Month, also started Negro History Week and Catholic Book Month. She believed in windows and mirrors, where every child has the right to see themselves in the book and also the right to learn about other cultures in books.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
I like
um,
that.
you know,
Windows and
so
mirrors. Mm-hmm.
so that book is called Fanny's Big Idea. It came
Mm-hmm.
out today, this morning. And so, what gives me hope is as I travel around
Mm-hmm.
the country, I talk to people and I talk to kids. They understand. They really do understand that they need to, that they want to do what's right.
Mm-hmm.
I still, I'm amazed that the country where we are right now, but I still believe that most people want what's right.
Yeah.
Part of the problem is that we're being ruled by billionaires and corporations, uh,
Mm-hmm.
but and their aim is to divide us.
Right.
That is their main aim. If they put blacks here and Jews here and gays here and get us fighting among each other,
Mm-hmm.
uh, they control the narrative.
Yes.
And we need to teach kids that the narrative can be changed.
Yes.
And as difficult as this time is today, as a Jew, we have a thousands and thousands year old history. Times have often been difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And we've survived. We're still here. If you look at Black history, Obama, one of the reasons he did the first Seder was that the Exodus was so important to the Black civil rights leaders,
Mm-hmm.
uh, where the escape from slavery to freedom.
Sure.
Uh, so we have these points in time when people came together.
Mm-hmm.
When Louis Brandeis was put up for the Supreme Court, the senators and the government did not want to put him on the court. It was the first contentious nomination.
Mm-hmm.
But people all over this country
Mm-hmm.
who he had helped started writing to their elected representatives,
And they were
and and
heard.
and they were heard. So we can't give up. We have to have our voice heard. Kids need to know that there are other possibilities. There are ways to grow up
Mm-hmm.
where you can make a difference. And literature and books are often how we find that, which is why, in the end, you and I have just had because we're talking for parents, had a very adult conversation. But the books are fun. The books are fun to read.
Yeah. And thank
And
you. Yeah. And thank you for what you just said. Really helped us to kind of wrap up on a positive, hopeful note. I mean, we absolutely need that. And just start pouring into our children now as their ideas are being formed so that they won't have these rigid strongholds to break down the road in terms of their perceptions of other people or the perceptions of themselves relative to other people. If you start planting this seed now, this openness, this willingness and courage to embrace difference, then I think we set our world up for a much better outcome, a much more unified and productive outcome. Maybe they're going to be the ones that really are going to lead us out of out of this place that we're in right now.
Fanny Goldstein, who's Fanny's big idea, her mantra, what she always said was, the more you know about somebody else's life, the harder it is not to like them.
Yes.
She was a librarian, and that's why she wanted people to learn about other people's lives and get to know other people. And, I think we're all on our machines nowadays. And one of the beauty of having picture books is you can share that with your child one-on-one. I mean, this is the beauty of books and reading, and you can have these conversations and you can read them again and maybe have a different idea the next time. Reading, is, hopefully, and books will help get us to a better place.
Yes, yes. And I will say, like, I don't know about the listeners and the viewers, but I feel motivated to like start building a library now of these picture books that you've written. And it makes me even think about others that I want to collect for my future grandchildren. And so that they start off. And then I even have books that I saved, picture books that I saved from my sons that I'm holding on to for, I don't know what I'm holding on to them for. When I started saving them, I wasn't even thinking about grandchildren at that point because they were still kids. But as I think about it, I think that's a beautiful gift that I could really pass down. And I have to have some of your books because the messages and the topics that you tackle are just so essential in helping to form children's character. So thank you so much for the work that you do. And I'd love to know, how can we follow you going forward? Because my goodness, it sounds like you have a book coming out every month or something. I'm probably exaggerating, but you're a prolific author. So how can we follow you?
Well, first of all, let me say thank you as well for Parenting 411 because everybody needs help. We're in this together. And these conversations that you're doing are wonderful and give people a place to go. I mean, it's like a community center, a town hall. We need to talk to each other. That's the most important thing. My books mine is at my website. You can see richardmichelson.com. That's MICHELSON.com, richardmichelson.com. You can friend me on Facebook, where I announce where I'm talking and where I'm going and what schools I'm at or what's coming out. I don't have social media on everything because I'm too old for that. But and I also you see behind me, I also have a gallery, and I handle the original illustrations of many of the major picture book artists in the country.
Okay.
And as you said, you pass down books. One of the great pleasures for me is how many people have bought like original artworks from their favorite book as a child, and they pass it down to their children. And, I've been doing this for 50 years now. So sometimes they pass it down for their grandchild. And, people, I'll just mention a few names. I hate to do that because I leave out most of them.
Right.
But, we handle the estate now of Jerry Pinkney,
Mhm.
who is certainly one of the most prominent Black illustrators this country has ever known, the first one to win the Caldecott Award, which
Mm.
and he has
Mhm.
won, I think, more Coretta Scott King awards than
Mm.
anyone. So Jerry Pinkney, his books are amazing. Uh,
Mhm.
and in fact, George Lucas is starting his own museum of narrative art in Los Angeles and
Mhm.
just bought two complete books of Jerry's Pinkney's work. I also handle his son, Brian Pinkney.
Mhm.
I mentioned my book about Martin Luther King and Abraham Joshua Heschel. That's
Mhm.
illustrated by Raoul Colon. And George Lucas bought that book as well.
Mm.
But Raoul has many wonderful stories that are appropriate for Latinos and households, and all households. I
Mhm.
mean, you need to read about others, but if you go to rmichelson.com,
Okay.
instead of Richard Michelson, rmichelson.com, you can look at the various illustrators, and the people at the gallery are really the premier illustrators working in this country today. So
Wonderful.
take a look.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And to those who are watching, those who are listening, I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. And if you found value in this conversation, please share this episode with another parent, and be sure to let us know in the comments, what did you think about this? What's your major takeaway? And just your review, your comments will just help more families discover all of these important stories that we're doing, not only about Richard Michelson and his work, but also the Parenting 411. And don't forget to just browse our channels on YouTube and Instagram for more resources that can make your parenting journey easier and just pave the way for you to have more meaningful conversations at home. And as I always bid you, remember, it's never too late to be the parent you want to be. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to talk to you next time.
Thank you.
We bring you this episode for the purpose of information and entertainment only. It is not the intent or purpose of the Parenting 411 podcast or Carol Maletta to provide an exhaustive reference or guide on all aspects of parenting, childcare, and family life. You are strongly encouraged to read all available information, consult medical or other appropriate professionals, and pursue all reasonable means to learn as much as possible about parenting to complement what you gain here, and then tailor the information to meet your individual needs. Yes, parenting is a serious matter, though it is not an exact science. The context and insights offered in this and every episode represent an account of knowledge and personal experiences of the host and any featured guests for the viewers' and listeners' information and consideration. The host and guests do not guarantee to our viewers or listeners any specific parenting outcomes from this episode or taking actions described here.